Here we go. Usually we wait until after the postlude. Today, like every other day, we wake up empty and frightened. Don't open the door to your study and begin reading. Not the New York Times, not People magazine, not even the list of ingredients on your breakfast cereal. Take down a musical instrument, a Steinway perhaps, or sing, or hum, or whistle a tune. Let the beauty we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. There is more love somewhere. Our first hymn is number 95. and we join in the words of our unison affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. So be it.
Good morning. Welcome to the First Parish in Bedford, gathered in love and service for justice and peace. Come into our house of hope and love, of peace and justice, of wholeness and healing. We welcome the certain and the seeking, the longtime members and the newcomers, the joyful and the fearful, all of whom are beloved, all of whom belong. Life is richer, deeper, and more gratifying if we live it together. Whoever you are, wherever you were born, whomever you love, whatever body you live in, welcome home. If you are with us for the first time today, you could stay in touch by filling out a little blue connection card that you can find in your pew. You can also stop by the welcome table, which is out these doors between here and the common room. Join us afterwards for community hour, coffee, tea, some snacks, and a chance to meet new people. It's always great if you're someone who's new to just look around for someone with a red cup. Those are people on the membership committee. They're eager to listen to you, learn about what brought you to church, and tell you anything you'd like to know about First Parish here. And that being said, not all of us carry red mugs, but we're all eager to meet and talk with and connect with new people and people that we don't know as well. There's so many of us, and it can be hard to connect in. So it's always great to try to think back on the person who welcomed you when you first showed up. If you've been here a long time, just think, what would it be like to be new? And with that spirit among us, I invite you to stand up if you're able and turn and greet folks around you and maybe connect with someone you haven't met before. All right. Thank you, everybody. All right, raise your hand if you just met someone you hadn't ever really connected with before. Oh, that makes me really happy. Yay, keep up that great work. If, John, is there a service discussion following this at 11:30 up there? There is a service discussion if you would like to talk more about fear or how love conquers fear or fears you have or what keeps you awake at night and any other thing related up there at 11:30. All right, let's see. The auction, it's coming up in 2 weeks. This is November 11th, that's a Saturday night, and it's really soon. Last year, I loved the auction. I got excited about a beautiful round mirror. I wandered around. I saw all these handcrafted things that people had made. Folks in here had a chance to bid on each other's homes to go and stay for a weekend there, things like that. It's just a lot of fun. So I stood there and I bid on this mirror. And then someone came along and bid $1 more, and I was like, oh. So I bid again on another $1. And then I came back around 5 minutes later and someone had bid another $1. We had this war for like 25 minutes. And you probably wouldn't be surprised, but it was Carl Winkler who later gave me the mirror at Christmas. So you too can do your Christmas shopping at the auction. Figure out what someone wants and bid $1 higher and then give it to them. But first, we really need you to donate. We are actually still looking for things, and this is one of our biggest fundraisers all year. The auction team works really hard on putting it together, and we would love for you to help them. You can go to the First Parish website and look under the link for auction. Take a picture with your phone or however you want, with your little mirror or whatever. Fill out the thing. It's very simple, and it helps them. And you can do that this weekend only. After that, it's just way too hard for them to keep gathering things. So please do that this weekend, and then come to the auction on November 11th. Let's see, Kristallnacht is November 9th, not this week, but the next week, and that is a chance to commemorate the Night of Broken Glass, which was a night in 1938 in Germany when the fears that were starting to cultivate what later became the Holocaust. Folks broke into shop windows and people's homes and broke lots of glass, and it is a time then we look back on what happened in history and stand as a united community with others in Bedford against hatred and bigotry in this time and for all time. That is outdoors on the Common at 7 p.m. on November 9th. And then I'm working backwards, but this week, November 1st, we have a tradition here of honoring all souls. This is in keeping with our Transylvanian friends, our partner church. It's a night to honor those who have died in the last year and times before that. We stand outside on All Souls Night, November 1st at 7 p.m. in our memorial garden, and all are welcome. It's called Halotak Napia in Hungarian. If you've missed joining Doug, Patrick, and myself for the 12 questions class, we've had a wonderful set of evenings together. 2 evenings are left, not this Tuesday, which is Halloween, but November 7th and 14th, the 2 Tuesdays following Halloween. You could always find other announcements in the back of your order of service. Don't forget about those. It's great to be with you. I'm so glad to see all your faces. Welcome, welcome. And now a time for all ages.
So this is the story of the emperor's new clothes. What possible relevance could this have? This story comes to us by way of Sufi sources and Hans Christian Andersen. Once there was an emperor who loved to wear magnificent clothes. He dressed up so much. He changed his clothes every day. He changed his clothes every hour. He was by far the best dressed man in the land. Well, one day, 2 swindlers, 2 cheaters, 2 bad guys came to town, and they went to the emperor and they said, you know, we can weave you the most magnificent clothing ever seen in the world. It will be delicate. It will be light. It will be magnificent. And even better, it will be invisible to everyone who is stupid or incompetent. Well, the emperor said, this might be a good way for me to weed out my empire of all undesirable people. And so the emperor gave the 2 swindlers lots and lots of money and jewels and said, yes, weave me a suit of clothes. And so the swindlers went off and they started sewing. They started sewing. They started weaving and weaving. And the emperor sent some of his assistants out to check and see how the new suit of clothes was coming. And they couldn't
see the suit of clothes, and they were afraid that the emperor might think them to be stupid or incompetent. And so they went back to the emperor and they said, "Oh, those guys are making wonderful clothes for you. They'll be just great. Wow, you'll be so impressed." And so eventually, the two guys said, "Your suit of clothes is ready. Let's have a big celebration of your new set of clothes." And so the emperor took off all of his clothes. All of his clothes. The emperor was naked. Butt naked. And the two guys came and they pretended to put clothes on the emperor. They put underwear, they put a jacket, they put trousers, they put a cape and a cloak and a hat. Except no one could see these things. And yet everyone was afraid to say they couldn't see them because the emperor would think them stupid and incompetent. And so there was a great processional into the center of town, and here was the emperor in the all together going down to the main square, and the people all around cheered and they applauded and they said, "Oh, Emperor, you have the very best clothes ever, the very best clothes ever." Except there was one little boy, and that little boy couldn't figure out what the heck was going on here. And this little boy pointed at the emperor and he said, "But the emperor has no clothes." The little boy was the only one who was unafraid to tell the truth. Sometimes we see things that are obvious and we are reluctant to say what it is we see. Sometimes the emperor really has no clothes. See if you can apply that to anything in your lives. "Abide with me" is our hymn. And as kids and teachers go to their in-gathering, we'll sing its number 101.
Darkness
I'm inserting a reading here. Many of you know that on email I asked you to share some of your thoughts about fears and how we approach fears and what we are afraid of. And one of you recommended a book to me, Jumping at Shadows, The Triumph of Fear and the End of the American Dream. Sasha Abramsky, and it is a scary book. I'll read just a section from it. In the spring of 2015, a meme began circulating on social media sites. We had a war on drugs and got more drugs. We had a war on terror and got more terror. Let's have a war on jobs. It was, on the surface, nothing more than a light piece of satire, yet those 3 sentences spoke to something important. Hysterias don't solve vast societal problems. Too often, overwrought responses generate more of the very conditions they were intended to vitiate, creating cycles of chaos and, at the same time, ever greater curbs on personal liberty. In the overhyping of risk, we have nurtured dystopia, and in dystopias, the currency of violence, be it individual or institutional, acquires a perverse prestige. Fear, wrote Corey Robin in Fear, the History of a Political Idea, ensures that those with power maintain it and prevents those without power from doing much, if anything, to get it. Mass incarceration, omnipresent electronic monitoring of individuals' lives, a militarized border, political campaigns that target specific ethnicities and religions, locked down classrooms, the routinization of brutal police tactics, the breaking apart of families in the name of safety, the expulsion of children from schools under the guise of stability, all are symptoms of a social system in deep crisis. So too is the epidemic of anxiety and the extraordinary reliance tens of millions of Americans now have on powerful psychotropic medications simply to get through each day. Our fears have quite literally become embedded parts of our identity, and by extension, the drugs we use to take the edge off those fears and the chemical changes to our brains that those drugs trigger have become part of what makes us who we are as individuals and as a community. And one more short piece. In the campaign for the U.S. presidency in 2016, those fears were nurtured as never before. The result was the election to the most powerful office on earth of a ruthless demagogue, a man who promised to register people because of their religion and to torture terrorism suspects because they deserve it. The fox eats all the hens, then takes a sledgehammer and smashes the hen house to bits. And then it says, with blood dripping from its teeth, how are we going to solve this problem? It's crazy. How we navigate this brutal reality in the years to come will be the dominant question of our age. How we work to make our dreams of a fairer, less divisive, less fear-driven world come true will be the defining challenge of our time. Freely we have received. Freely give for the good work of this congregation within and far, far beyond these walls. Our offering will now gratefully be received. A couple of weeks ago, I officiated at an outdoor wedding at a camp in Vermont. The groom was Sam Holland, who grew up in this church, and in the course of planning the ceremony with Sam and his fiancée, Jessica, they told me that an important quotation for them was from the science fiction novel Dune by Frank Herbert. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the mind killer. The full quote is at the top of your order of service. For Sam and Jessica, their relationship and their love for one another enabled them to face their fears together and be not deadened, but enlivened. This wedding theme fit rather nicely with things I often say at weddings. No matter how long or how well a couple may have known one another, I almost always say, "You have no idea what you're getting yourselves into." And they really don't. Who knows what tomorrow may bring? Almost always, another thing I say, my wedding benediction is, through all the chances and changes of life, may you, trusting each other, trust life and not be afraid. And just for good measure, I sometimes include a fine poem titled "Marriage is a Bungee Jump" by Walt McDonald. I won't read it all to you, but it begins, "Marriage is a bungee jump off some box canyon in Colorado, concession manned by a minion from the 50s high on weed, beard he hasn't brushed since high school." And then you see the stoned concession operator makes the couple sign a waiver and pay in cash, and then the couple tugs on the ropes, the knots of which appear to have been tied by someone who flunked that lesson in Scouts. And then the poem ends. We check the charts, the geology of cliffs and canyons, but no one knows which fibers split, which granite ledges crack. On the edge of hope for nothing we'd ever done, we tugged at the ropes, both ropes, blessing the stretch and strain with our bodies, a long time falling to the pain and certainty of stop. Hand in hand, we stepped up, wavering to the ledge, hearing the rush of a river we leaped to, a far-off cawing crow, the primitive breeze of the fall, and squeezed, clinging to each other's vows that only death could separate us now. Yes, marriage is a bungee jump. And coincidentally, at this Vermont camp, there was a ropes course. Have any of you ever done a ropes course? Raise your hand if you've done a ropes course. It is a tree-level exercise in team building and facing one's fears, and, well, I have no intention of ever doing a ropes course. Fear is a mind killer. I have since learned that this quotation is so meaningful to another young adult who grew up at First Parish that on his forearm he now has it forever tattooed. Fear is the mind killer. I've thought this might make an interesting service, or possibly a wall calendar. The tattoos of First Parish. Fear lately has been on my mind. Millennials are wary of freedom was a recent op-ed. Young Americans seem to be losing faith in freedom. Only about 30% of Americans born after 1989 believe it is absolutely essential to live in a democratic country, compared to 72% born before World War II. What unites so many young Americans? The answer is fear. The author says, parental culture has become increasingly guarded and safety-focused. The rise of helicopter parenting, protecting children from needless harm, has become conflated with shielding them from stressors and uncertainties. Young Americans report ever higher levels of anxiety. Fear pushes people to adopt a defensive posture. When people feel anxious, they're less open to diverse ideas and opinions and less forgiving and tolerant of those they disagree with. When people are afraid, they cling to the certainty of the world they know and avoid taking physical, emotional, and intellectual risks. What can be done? We must liberate them. Let them be free to navigate the world, make mistakes, fail, experience emotional pain, and learn to self-regulate fear and distress. If we want future generations to have faith in freedom, we need to restore our faith in them. That was all from this op-ed by Clay Routledge. And then, indeed, there is the fear-mongering that seems to have America by its throat. As I read to you earlier, how we work to make our dreams of a fairer, less divisive, less fear-driven world come true will be the defining challenge of our age. As a community of faith, I believe we are called to love and be our best selves, to face our fears and to cast out fear. And so in the time-honored manner of getting you to write my sermon for me, I asked you to tell me, what do you fear? Or what did you fear but fear no longer? How would you encourage someone who is fearful? Can fear motivate us, or is it just a mind killer? Ask and you shall receive. Here are some of the things you told me. Honestly, John, I would rather face a firing squad than have to write and deliver a sermon. I've seen your hands shake up there as you turn the pages. I've told you this before. My hands right now are ice cold. All the blood has gone to my brain because I never know when you're going to turn on me. I'm the one with the chair and you're the lion. 10 minutes after I'm done, my hands will be nice and warm, but not yet. Sometimes someone says, I think about the things I used to fear the most. Although I ran like a rat in a maze to avoid them, most happened anyway. Let's see. Didn't measure up to society's standards. Lost job. Lost home. Lost possessions. Lost loved ones. Got sick. None of these killed me. These are my more recent fears. That I might drink again. The shame of letting people down, not treating them right. Afraid to give unconditional love. Failed to show love when it was needed. Nagging questions about myself. Afraid to be uncomfortable. These are the fears that could do me in, this person says, making me walking dead. To work on them, I need to step forward, not back. I was going to say that fear is never motivating to me, but that wouldn't be true. I can run way faster when I'm scared. when it comes to outside forces trying to frighten me, like political fear-mongering or bullying, it often triggers a stubborn inner justice meter response in me, an angry, screw that, hot bravado that sends me to the barricades and then seeps through my shoes into the pavement, leaving me with either a cold resolve to keep going or the bare strength not to cut and run. I am always braver when I see fears in the eyes of a companion, but I've never been tested. I hope I would have someone's back to the best of my ability. The way things are going, I may soon find out. Others. I fear being truly alone. Fear of not being good enough, not knowing enough, not doing enough. Fear of losing it all. One of our 104-year-old members at Carlton Willard Village last week told me that when she was just a toddler, her mother taught her to be afraid of boys. By the time she got to kindergarten, however, she had gotten over that fear. On the other hand, several women wrote to me of persistent fears in the aftermath of emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. Me too, they said. Me too. I couldn't tell anyone because I feared it was my fault. With therapy and the support of amazing friends, I confronted my abuser. I took back my power. I have even forgiven him. I have forgiven, but not forgotten. I'm not paralyzed by fear. Past events do not define me. And by sharing with others, I learned I am not alone. One of you saw the truth in the generalization. Women are taught they should be afraid. Men are taught they should not be afraid. Others. I fear that my memory and my mental competence will go before my body is ready to die. I am really, insert, she says, really about 100 times more, afraid that Donald Trump will get us into a nuclear war, and almost as afraid of what Pence would do. Many of you express fears for the safety of your children. We live in such an unpredictable world now. I fear my child is never going to be able to let her guard down because she is a person of color. One of you referred me to a comprehensive survey of America's top fears of 2017. Number 10. Air pollution. Number 9, North Korea. Number 8, global warming and climate change. Number 7, the U.S. in another world war. Number 6, high medical bills. Number 5, not having enough money for the future. Number 4, pollution of drinking water. Number 3, pollution of oceans, rivers, and lakes. Number 2, Trump care. And the number 1 American fear of 2017, corrupt government officials. Boogeymen were not on the official list, but on some of yours. Also not on the official list, but on one of yours was a 1963 episode of The Twilight Zone, where all the neighbors tried to beat down the door of someone's fallout shelter. This person writing to me said, realizing we had no fallout shelter in my house, I freaked out. I mentioned this at Carlton Willard and was startled to learn that Hanscom allegedly being targeted, more than a few of us actually built and stocked fallout shelters. It was at this point in my sermon writing that I took a break and watched a 1951 film on YouTube featuring Bert the Turtle and the snappy song, Duck and Cover, Duck And cover. Back to the 2017 list. Terrorism, number 22. Sharks, number 41. Public speaking, number 52. Police brutality, number 59. Well, I bet that depends on who you ask. There are 80 fears on this list. These are the least fearful. Number 75, significant other cheating on you. Number 76, clowns. Number 77, blood. Number 78, zombies. Number 79, ghosts. Number 80, the things Americans fear least in 2017, animals, dogs, rats, etc. Well, now let's turn to the antidotes to fear. Some of you recalled FDR. All we have to fear is fear itself. And Eleanor, too. You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You are able to say to yourself, I have lived through this horror. I can take the next thing that comes along. You must do the thing you think you cannot do. Another of you took note of the modern prophet, Reverend William Barber, who spent some time with some of us last week. Barber did not offer optimism, one of you said, but he does offer hope, and I think hope is a wonderful antidote to fear. You know that the UUA slogan used to be standing on the side of love, but now it has shifted to love resists. In that spirit, those of us working with Barber are now planning on the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King Jr.'s last campaign, a new poor people's campaign to begin on Mother's Day and continue for 40 days with 1,000 arrests in each of at least 25 state capitals. This civil disobedience to focus the nation's attention on the moral sins of racism, poverty, environmental degradation, and militarism. Mark your calendars. And yes, there are still everyday fears. Long afraid of dark parking lots, one of you studied karate for 5 years. Skills of self-defense have made me less fearful. I'm still practical and cautious, but less fearful. Someone recalled something taught by a nurse at the Benson Mind-Body Institute. The opposite of fear, she taught, is gratitude. Ask, what is the learning? And when I can find an answer and be grateful for the learning, I would not feel so much fear. In Paradise Lost by Milton, the mind is its own place and in itself can make a heaven of hell and a hell of heaven. What is fear but another kind of hell? I'm not sure that love stops fear, someone told me, but trust might. With his tongue only somewhat in his cheek, one of our Carlton Willard members said that the best antidote to fear is propranolol. Propranolol. He was a psychiatrist and often prescribed propranolol to musicians and performers with performance fears. Like he had discovered the Holy Grail, he whispered to me, propranolol. Propranolol. That, however, is not the word this sermon will end on. Being fearful alone, one of you said, is worse than fear in community. I am grateful for an amazing family, incredible community, including my First Parish small group ministry, for being a place to process fear and worry. And finally, one of you reminded me of words in our hymnal, words by the great naturalist and writer Wendell Berry. Turn, if you will, to number 483, and we'll read these words together in unison. 483. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. The natural world is a kind of sanctuary and an antidote to fear. And now, in conclusion, I remind us that we, the First Parish in Bedford, we are also a sanctuary for ourselves and a sanctuary for others. Most recently and notably, as a congregation, we have affirmed that we will give shelter to those who unjustly are threatened by imminent deportation, people whose freedom is in jeopardy and whose very lives are at stake. Our love will resist the defensive, stranger-fearing, nativist impulse. We've prepared a place, organized ourselves, made coalition and allies. We welcome the stranger, we protect the vulnerable, we accompany the oppressed. On Thursday, 3 days ago, in response to the unanimous recommendation of our Sanctuary Committee, our parish board unanimously approved a motion to welcome someone into sanctuary. This could happen imminently. Let the beauty we love be what we do. We are walking our talk. I end with the words I read to you earlier. In this fearful world, how we navigate this brutal reality in the years to come and in the hours and days to come will be the dominant question of our age. How we work to make our dreams of a fairer, less divisive, less fear-driven world come true will be the defining challenge of our time. As individuals, as families, and as a congregation, in these fearful times is our opportunity to be our best selves. May we be grateful for the opportunity to make our dreams of a fairer, less divisive, less fear-driven world come true. And through all the chances and changes of life, may we, trusting each other, trust life and not be afraid.
I invite you to join me in the spirit of prayer. Spirit of life and love, Help us as we rest in the quiet of ages to make room for all that is coming into our lives. We know that life itself is a bungee jump, that around the next corner comes surprise, and that no matter how we seek to trust anew or live our dreams, they will sometimes be dashed. We know too well that fear is the mind killer. Open us to love. Grant us the courage to love boldly in the face of our greatest fears. As a community of faith, through all the chances and changes of life, we give thanks for this place where we speak our truth in love and help one another. Let us leave no one outside the circle of care, for who among us knows all the terrors anyone else has faced? Grow in us your wisdom and let our actions speak when silence threatens justice and indifference disturbs peace. One among us needs sanctuary. We open our doors, welcome in our neighbor, and help keep watch by night. When gossip, hate, and cruelty arise among friends or in public places, help us bravely walk forward together. We know love resists, and so come storm or rain, sorrow or pain, let us link arms and remain singing. When we defensively assert certainty in the presence of the unknown, grant us the courage to live comfortably in the unanswerable questions of life. Bless us with the gift of trust in each other and in life itself, and let love take root in us until it pushes forth shoots of understanding and branches of courage. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 391, Voice Still and Small, which we will sing twice through.
May we not die an unlived life. May we not live in fear of falling or catching fire. May we choose to inhabit our days, to allow our living to open us, to make us less afraid, more accessible, to loosen our heart until it becomes a wing, a torch, a promise. May we choose to risk our significance, to live so that that which came to us as seed goes to the next as blossom, and that which came to us as blossom goes on as fruit.
Amen. Amen.